Hey guys, welcome back to Insite, and today we have Trav in the Crosshair. This is a bit of a unique episode as we aren't maybe focusing on someone's history or career they've had, but we're actually focusing on a certain event, and that event is what unfolded at the PGL Major involving CSGO Empire and them storming the stage in protest of CSGORoll, who were a sponsor of G2 or ex-sponsor. And because of this led you to pull out of a tournament they were hosting. You were supposed to be commentating it, but after it, you publicly made a stand. I think you were the first commentator to make the stand. And in the process, I think the whole tournament died as one would have expected. So that is kind of the aim of what we're talking about here. But before we get onto that, how are you? How are you doing, Trav? You were at the major. Did you enjoy the major? Like, how are you doing, firstly?
Yeah, I'm fine. I've got a tiny bit of land flu. Not that
It
bad
happens.
though. Like just a minor cold. I'll take it. Usually, quite often I end up with a little bit worse. But yeah, I'm feeling okay. I had casts immediately when I came back from the major, and I was healthy enough to do them. So yeah, I loved the event. Copenhagen was honestly a lovely experience. Met so many people as you always do at these events, and just being able to interact with all like-minded people, and even getting like 3 or 4 people who, even though I'm a sort of still kind of like an up and coming caster, 3 or 4 people say, "Oh, hey Trav, like I love your casting." Even stuff like that sort of makes your day, And yeah, love seeing everyone, love the event. It was, I would say, to put it into perspective, I think for a lot of people maybe who weren't there, who maybe have been to other big events. It was actually not obviously as big as the Cologne arena, but it was as loud as Cologne.
Oh yeah.
Definitely, it was honestly it was popping in there.
Yeah, it was a really cool event, and honestly, what a warrior for casting the next day. Like, I saw people casting yesterday, and I was like, "It's just
Yeah,
no
Neo did,
chance I could
Scriv
have done
did.
that." Yeah,
Yeah,
Lucy and Beetle, I was like,
yeah,
"What
exactly.
for that?" But getting on to the topic at hand. So, talk to me
Yeah.
first about the process of you firstly being approached by CS:GO Empire, and was it a concern for you at all in the first place that you would be casting for a gambling company?
Kind of that always is the case. Yeah, but they came across quite well in the email, and I wasn't actually contacted by CS:GO Empire
Okay.
themselves, right? I was contacted by Fortuna Esports, who have done other events in the past, and they were working obviously in association with CS:GO Empire, but with Grid, and obviously like Grid have had their ups and downs over the years, but they run a ton of these tier 2 events, and honestly, in general, in the last couple of years, been very reliable for me in this sort of field of work, and especially for the Thunder Pick World Championship, for example. I mean, the Thunder Pick World Championship, for me, one of the best online events I've ever worked, some of the best people in the online space that I've worked with. So if Grid are going to partner with someone and they're going to work with someone, I kind of trusted it off the back of that. I saw their layout, their play-in stage, group stage, and playoffs that they sort of laid out to me as well. The times were okay. It would have been good, like it would have been good sort of side work, like from my ESL stuff, from my other bits and pieces. And I'm always interested in that sort of thing because obviously, at the beginning of a year, sometimes as a caster, especially as freelance, I think everyone's in the same boat in this sense. You never really know what's coming or what you're going to get. So if you're going to have something like this on the side, which would have been like did good sort of side pay, it's always something I'd consider. And yeah, I did look into CSGO Empire a little bit. Obviously, I was concerned about that, but it being in association with those other companies, I thought it would be okay.
Yeah, and so talk me now about just why you pulled out and what happened from your perspective of you pulling out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very weird process because obviously, like in the lead up to them storming the stage, we were all looking on the phone saying, "Oh, there's this guy streaming. He's saying there's going to be like a 30-second or 30-minute countdown, sorry, to something happening," and it's like, well, I mean, so often this happens, and it's just idle threats of just some random guy trying to make a scene for himself, trying to gain some publicity. But then it actually happened, and we were like, "Oh shit! Well, okay." They actually went through with storming the stage. That is like when as soon, even like half an hour before they actually went through with it, he kept raising the timer on his stream over and over. PGL added about 30 crowd safety people around the catwalk at the front of the stage, and I was looking at the front guy as well. Probably the guy who was in charge of them all, and he was full scan. He was really ready and raring to go in case anything happened. And when someone finally stormed the stage, absolutely leapt into action, right? And it was kind of incredible to watch at the time and see it happen in the moment, but still kind of shocking and disappointing in general as well.
Yeah, okay. So why did you pull out then? What was like obviously we saw him on the stage, but like what was the process of you pulling out then?
It was kind of crazy because like once I saw that CS:GO Empire had taken responsibility for this entire thing, don't get me wrong, from what I read about it, seeing all the leaflets around the arena that they've been throwing
Hmm.
around, right? CSGORoll are definitely in the wrong as well. Like they've obviously scammed some people as far as I understand. Like there's some bad stuff going on here. But as I said in my tweet, I think afterwards, like two wrongs don't make a right. Like CS:GO Empire went way above the Call of Duty to publicize this with at least the leaflets anyway, let alone employing people to storm the stage. And yeah, obviously I had to then I reconsidered my position even before they stormed the stage. I was like, okay, this guy's behind it. I'm due to cast this event. I was contacted a month ago for this. I'm probably going to have to make a stand here pretty quickly and get myself out of this. I was prepared to message on Discord in the arena saying I'm out, privately and discreetly, almost as soon as it happened, pretty much. And then when the game ended, I got a chance to send messages properly. So, yeah, very wild, disappointing because obviously it's lost work, but there we are. I'm glad to be out of it.
Yeah, and you have mentioned kind of those like leaflets and Monarch, who was I don't know who he is. I think he's like the owner of CS:GO Empire, but he was doing a lot
Yeah.
of stuff on social media, on Twitter, and on a stream on Kick. So if they hadn't stormed the stage, would you still like where would your have decision been with all those things in mind that Monarch was saying all these things online, like to the threats, but still saying them and the tweets and how he was performing online as an ambassador of CSGO Empire and all the other kind of like I want to say peaceful protests in quotation marks. I don't really know
Yeah.
how to place them, such as handing out leaflets like they did in Paris as well and in Copenhagen. Where would have your decision been if you take away the storming of the stage?
I still think even if those idle threats had come in and he was acting the way he was on social media, like as I was saying, like just basically like tripling, quadrupling down on his takes about this thing, which were kind of deranged, honestly, from some of what stuff I saw. I would have, looked at it and said, yeah, I'm getting out, even without a stage storm, even if it was at a smaller event, for example. Obviously, I'm a champion of quite a lot of smaller events, especially the smaller LAN events. I always enjoy watching them and I enjoy being involved with them as well. So I would have definitely known, I would have definitely seen about it, and I probably would have, yeah, I would have got out of that as soon as possible. There's probably nothing they could have done to keep me employed for that event. I think
Yeah.
I respect my image more than still being affiliated with that for sure.
Okay, do you think the fact that it was so publicly known and the fact that it was at a major and there were so many eyes on it, do you think that affected your decision because of the public opinion?
Well, I mean, as I said, I mean, I do keep a good close eye on the consensus, right? Especially the social media consensus. And sometimes if it's 50-50, you can say, okay, well, it's just an even debate between two people. This consensus was, 99% of people
Yeah.
absolutely, they were absolutely against this completely and against everything the CSGO Empire would say. I mean, you should the replies to their tweets and Monarch's tweets and all that stuff, right? Like, yeah, I saw that it was the right thing to do very, very quickly. And even if it maybe was a little bit more contentious, I still feel like I would have looked at it and said, is this really worth it? There was like one or two games in the play-in stage that I was asked to do, which would have been solo cast as well, which kind of
Oh,
isn't
yeah,
industry
fuck that.
standard anymore. So I was like, it's side work, but I can take or leave this at this point. It's not worth it.
Okay. Do you think if it was a bigger event, so like I understand that it was like that side where like in the end it wasn't a big event, like it was a side
Yeah.
event. Like I think a lot of people in kind of our tier would have had that view. If it was maybe one of those bigger events and something similar happened, do you think you'd had the same kind of very like your decision as you say it was very much like it happened and you were instantly like I'm out of this. Does it affect your opinion that it was one of those smaller events?
Well, at the end of the day, if it was maybe a big LAN, I don't know. I still think I
Yeah.
would have pulled out. Like, I
Okay.
still think I would have pulled out. I really do. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I really do. The fact that also, as you say, I mean, basically a small online cup. I've covered a lot of those. They're fun, and as you say, but I think even if it really was that extra special event, I mean, obviously they've put out threats saying, "Oh, we'll make it a $500,000 event. We'll invite all the top teams and some random teams as well." It's like, nah, man. Like at this point, no team and no caster is going to want to touch this with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think would have happened to like your career, or maybe like you and Hayes, for instance, you were supposed to be doing it together, or anyone else that does kind of like does touch it? What do you think would have happened to their career? I know it's quite like looking into the future a little bit, but like, what do you think would have happened if you just were a bit like, fuck it?
I don't know. I just think like image would be tarnished quite a considerable amount because you'll be affiliated with a company, or at least a name like Grid and Fortuna. I mean, Fortuna pulled out on the same day we pulled out, as the casters pulled out, right? I think just being affiliated with that name would basically hurt your name value for quite a lot. I'm not saying it maybe would have like stopped me getting work elsewhere, and maybe like other companies would look at me and say, "Wow, he's working with these guys. Like we shouldn't hire him anymore." I'm not saying that's how it would have necessarily worked. I just take pride in my name value and myself in general as well on doing the right thing more often than not. And, you know, like, as you say, as we've seen, I was going to do it privately. I was going to pull out privately and discreetly, right? I was going to send a message, ask some Liquipedia friends to remove me from the the Liquipedia page and say, yeah, I'm out of this. Just so happens that a guy comes to me pretty much immediately on Twitter and says, hypocrite, you're on the Liquipedia page for this event. I was like, okay, you give me the opportunity here. I'm going to have to say something publicly and take the W, to be honest. And in the end, it kind of works out weirdly in a good way for me. Sure, it's lost work, it's lost money, but genuinely, I would take, a name value and my image above like an extra like €1,500 or something.
So I was going to say, like, do you think you came out of it on top because you were the first person and like your name kind of went everywhere? Like when there was those, for instance, the Jake Lucky shit post when they're like, "Oh, this has happened." Like you were one of the people that were kind of like all over that because you were the first one and it did get good impressions. Like, do you think you benefited from the fact that you pulled out and made it so public?
Maybe. As I said, I would have preferred to do it privately, to be honest. But this guy just happened to give me an opportunity to, to take that chance and to take that opportunity just to mention it publicly. Because at the end of the day, I know I'm doing this interview now, and it sounds funny to say it now, right? But I don't want to give them that much publicity at the end of the day, right? But I just thought this would be a good idea because I wanted to like share some things about the process of what was going on, and and I think it's still a good thing for me that I was able to come out of it that way. I'm glad it happened that way because honestly, truth be told, I was quite nervous in the arena when everything happened. I knew that as soon as everything actually did go down, even before it did, I was like, yeah, I've made my decision here. I'm reconsidering my position. I'm going to pull out of this. And then when I had to send the message and I had to make that tweet publicly, I care about this shit a hell of a lot, right? I think when I went outside the arena at the end of the day, it was a bit cold, probably contributed to this, but I was shaking a bit, right? I was the message that I put the tweet out, it kind of popped off a bit. I was worried about what the public reception would be, even though I was quite confident it would be positive. I was still concerned about that. Maybe it's wrong of me to worry about what the common man thinks and just worry about what my peers think, But yeah, it was quite a nervous sort of a nerve-wracking moment that I wasn't feeling too comfortable with, and I was worried that I was a bit late or whatever. All these sort of things sort of swirling around your mind. Disappointed at lost work, disappointed at a lost paycheck, etc., right? And it was a difficult situation, but I think I did everything right. And I had a few colleagues message me saying, "Well done, Travis," and it's like, okay, I can relax a bit now.
Yeah, and like I know you've been to a lot of events, I've been to a lot of events. That was the first time I've ever felt like unsafe. I remember I was with kind of like my crew at the very, very front, and like I was shaking. Like there was a fight broke out next to us, which as it unfolds had nothing to do with the protest and was just drama and like a literal face it chat in real life. But like, if anyone was there, they'd be able to agree. Like that was the first time I've ever felt unsafe in an arena. And there's really no place for that.
It's really crazy as well, right? Because esports has always been very, very accessible, and obviously
Mm.
lots of people have mentioned that now this has happened, things are probably going to be closed up a little bit more. The catwalk was such a beautiful
So sad.
setup in the arena, in the Royal Arena. Like, I'm sure they would have walked down to the bottom of it. Pala did for a crowd interaction part that Richard Lewis introed him for, and it was such a cool bit. I got some really good pictures of it as well, and it's like, yeah, they just ruined it for everyone. It's not just that; it's the fact that they put the crowd safety people at risk of not necessarily like just being hurt by having to like tackle these people, right? And I'm pretty sure like a Dust 2, I remember from Dust 2, some interviewer or something got like barged or accidentally as well in the process and like broke their glasses or something. I don't know. It's something that I heard about. Like, I don't know. So many things just puts people at risk, and it was weird. I felt safe around my friends who I was sat with. Don't get me wrong. I felt safe in the arena with seeing all the crowd safety people that they put in to counteract these threats. But at the same time, it's like, well, shit, this stuff can happen, you know?
Yeah, do you think, I know again this is not really like your field of expertise, but do you think there's going to be a change in both how maybe even like gambling sponsors on tournaments are going to be conducted, and how events in general are going to be conducted with security and whatnot?
Possibly. I'd have to say that, I don't think the security at the Royal Arena was actually that bad at all. I think that
Oh, it
they
was
checked my
great. Yeah.
it was actually pretty good. Yeah, obviously it's always difficult for me in general actually with security, because I always have to have, I'm type 1 diabetic, right? So I always have to take I
Yeah.
put my medical wristband on. I always have to take food in with me to make sure my blood sugar doesn't drop too low. And obviously arenas sometimes have problems with that, don't they? With like taking your own food and your own water in
Actually,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. So yeah, it's always a bit, like, tough for me in those sort of circumstances, but usually everyone's been really, really nice and understanding, especially when I've like shown them the medical wristband and all that sort of stuff, right? I hope it doesn't make it harder in the future. Um, as you say, I'm not necessarily the man to ask this sort of thing, but I think absolutely no doubt extra crowd safety people will absolutely be put in place from day one in the future, I think, off the back of this.
Yeah, I think, and again, like, I don't see
It's a
an
good
issue with
thing.
that. I think
It's a
like
good
there
thing.
has been, I think
Yeah.
there's always been a conversation in esports of honestly the lack of security. Like, definitely, as someone who's been to a lot of events, security has been very lackadaisical on multiple occasions. But moving on to more of a brighter note, I just want to end this interview. Obviously, like, you are not just some guy who pulled out of a tournament. You are someone who has you've had a big career, and I want to talk about you've had a lot of recent success. You mentioned that Thunderpick World Championship, and you also casted, which was an S tier event. You also casted the another Challenger LAN, the DreamHack Winter, and like you had a
Yes.
pretty good end to the year. Where do you think that puts you in the world of commentators right now, with kind of like your recent success at getting some of these big events and still being involved with the ESL, Thunderpick, and Elisa circuit? Where do you think you place yourself going into this year, and kind of like your expectations of casting?
It's always tough, as I say, being freelance, it is always difficult. You never really truly know where you stand, I
Yeah,
feel like. But at this point, I'm confident in myself that I put myself in a position where I'm often called up for the close qualifiers for all the big ESL events and the IEMs. I'm doing like consistent online work with like Thunderpick, like we mentioned. I'll get the old Challenger LAN, and it is a a rung of the ladder. You slowly make your way forward. You try your very best. You always put in the best of your ability on every single broadcast you do. And honestly just very proud of myself to be in the conversation with people who are also around my sort of tier. You've got Neo, you've got Scriv, you've got Lucy, you've got Brandon, you've got Yumi, you've got Tea Time, right? We've all been doing it for quite a long time at this point. And I'm going to miss out names. So I'm thinking of you as well. Don't worry, the names I've missed out. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that I am involved in that. I still feel very proud. Obviously, working with my duo Hayes for a very long time. We started in some of the online, Fun Spark and online
days.
CCT cups before it was called CCT, of course. And yeah, I mean, I'm very proud. I'm very happy with where I am. I feel like I'm getting there. The goal is probably next to be maybe an IEMB stream, maybe something else. And I can say that I'm very happy that I will get some form of opportunity, somewhat similar to that, very soon. So keep your eyes out. I'm proud of myself. I'm very excited.
Flip.
And I'm still sometimes pinch myself that I can have my voice, attributed to some incredible moments in Counter-Strike history. And with the amount of events that are planned for 2025, 2026, it's very exciting for everyone at my level that more opportunities at big events will open up.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have had some issues with that availability, like as in there's not been much on for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So hopefully with next year, it's going to bring with the more Wild West of Counter-Strike, with there being no partner teams. I think it's gonna be a big Wild West, because all those calendars do not add on for any of the tier 2 tournaments. So there's going to be a lot of shit going on next year. And I think that's the positive way I want to end this interview. It's been a very unique episode talking to you. We're not really, we weren't normally my interviews are talking about players' history and like this, that, and like their achievements. But I think this has been something that I wanted to give you a voice and let you talk about what's happened in more of a longer form way of, as in, not just a tweet, and make sure that it's not misconstrued and get to the bottom of some of these things. But Trav, I hope you're doing well, and it's good to see you safe back and home. And I wish you the best of luck for the rest of the year. And for everyone, thank you very much for watching. It's been another episode of In the Crosshairs, and make sure to tune in next week for another episode. Cheerio.